Ukraine, 2018 year. There is a real economic crisis in the country. Law enforcement bodies are not competent. Parliamentary groups create special units, so-called punitive battalions. News about the attacks, robberies and killings have become commonplace. People are either intimidated or fed with slogans about national greatness. This country has a civil war. It all started 4 years ago on the Maidan. Then people dreamed about something else.
Revolution! Revolution!
The reason that inspired people to go to the Maidan is humanly understandable. Anger at the government of Yanukovych and the desire to be a part of free and civilized Europe. All this war promised by the then president, but he didn't fulfill his promise. People came to the square. Several months of confrontation between protesters and security forces charmed the whole world. But the revolution of dignity ended with mass murder on February 20.
They are shooting at people with Kalashnikov. It's a firearms.
More than 100 people were killed, hundreds wounded. As a result, Yanukovych left the country. The heroes of the revolution take over the government.
Just leave, you're getting in my way!
So far, no one knows who shot on the Maidan. To get to the answers, our film crew arrived in Yerevan. Here we met with 3 former military who witnessed killing at Maidan. They decided to speak now because they are afraid for their lives. Witnesses of the bloody shooting at the Maidan keep dying. At least 6 former comrades of this military man have already been killed. These cases are not investigated.
With me, or with the guys who gave this interview, the responsibility rests with Saakashvili and Mamulashvili.
Ex-president of Georgia was expelled from his country. He receives Ukrainian citizenship and becomes governor of the Odessa region. He appoints his people at all key posts, such as at port, customs, etc.
In January, they called me back to the office, in this free zone. He said that the unrest began. These are the events, these Ukrainian ones. People, rallies, protests. Well, from the TV, he said that we need to go to Kiev. We have to help our brothers. There also begin unrest, those that have gone. Well, he will pay us well. He gave us thousands of dollars for a pocket and said that at the end of the trip another 5,000 will be given us in dollars.
Georgy Bejo worked in the personal protection of Minister of Defense Georgy Baramidze. He fought in Afghanistan and Iraq. He was the head of the Home Defense. The military rank of George is a major.
Then Mamuka calls me and invites to meet, and asks, can I gather a group in Georgia of the guys I fought with?
In 1991, Cesar joined the ranks of the National Guard of Zviad Gamsakhurdia and worked in his personal operational protection group.
I once met Gia Bezhuashvili. He is my friend. We know each other from Abkhazia. We fought in Abkhazia, and from there we know each other. He came up to me and said that Mamuka Mamulashvili puts a group of people in Ukraine together to support Maidan, so to speak, and that they pay money for it.
Mamuka Mamulashvili, advisor to the Minister of Defense of Georgia at the time of presidency of Mikhail Saakashvili. He organized the Georgian National Legion as a part of the Ukrainian army. He took control over several industrial enterprises in Kyiv.
We met with Mamulashvili and he told us 2 photos on the passport and to give our personal passports to him. Then it was December. There was no border control or registration or anything else. We were just put in a minibus, we were taken to the airport and drove into the plane. We sat down, he gave us passport. It was interesting, I took my passport. There was the name of David Gegechkori and other data was my personal one. That is year of birth, place of birth. Well, it's all mine. When I met Mamuka, I gave him photos of people. He gave me money in an envelope. He told me, when you finish your work, all information will be deleted from the computer. You know, when you're given this kind of task, you look at everything with suspicion.
Bezhu has an experience in such matters. From 2011 to 2013, Bezh was trained in special battalions under the leadership of Mamuka Mamulashvili. They were trained in sniping, hand-to-hand fighting and detaining people.
Even later, after a while, I learned that the person who met us at the airport in Kiev was Parubiy.
Andriy Parubiy, commandant of the Maidan and the head of the defense of the Maidan, today the speaker of the Verkhovna Rada.
When we went to the Maidan, tents were already pitched there. We were met there by Mamuka and Parubiy, and they explained to us that our duty at this stage is to get acquainted with the situation. We were told that Jin was Parubiy's right hand, and that if he needs anything or an additional task arises, then this person will approach us and we shall obey him. I was like Maidan's internal security service. I checked all the tents, I checked and stopped everyone. I was in charge of internal security and so-called foreign intelligence.
Was the Georgian tent?
There were Georgian tents, but I did not see there no fighters of Mamuka nor anyone else.
The soldier of revolution, Jean, this is the Kievan Yevgeny Yeremenko. He was an officer of the security service of Ukraine in the past, then the owner of his own security company. During the Maidan, Jean organized a self-defense protest. Jean is proud that he was the right-hand man of the commandant of the protest, Andriy Parubiy.
We had a headquarters for registration to self-defense. There were posters and people who wanted to join us went to this headquarters. They had a conversation with them in order to understand what ideas they had and what their purpose is. I took 100 strong sportsmen because I had 100 of strong people. There was a specific task. It was not easy, as some onlookers came, shouted like a support. It was necessary to throw stones and Molotov cocktails. It was necessary to deduce Berkut, or police, from themselves. Yes, there were also stones, iron, chains and batons. There were fights, real fights. Someone was hacking his head. Someone had to be urgently removed. This I call help.
Shall we also make a provocation?
Yes, of course, of course. This is called provocation and help. We needed to extend this process, and we helped the protesters to carry out this provocation. There were a lot of people on Maidan who came at the call of the heart, but such people turned out to be very easy to use. When a group of people go to the assault, and a group of people is equipped in helmets, in masks, in body armor, with protective equipment, with Molotov cocktails, with batons, with cold weapons, and among them there are one or two people who also attack, but with firearms and fire.
In this case, the law is simple and understandable. A police officer has the right to use weapons in the event that there is a threat to his life, the lives of others, or the lives of colleagues. In the Sviatoshinsky district court of Kyiv City, the case of 5 employees of the special unit of the Berkut is being examined. They are accused of shooting 48 activists of the Maidan. These security forces have been under arrest for more than 3 years. Many people consider this case to be fabricated. Others are waiting for an indicative punishment of the so-called murderers.
A good question is why we are here. I think this is a political decision of the current government. At each stage there will be a different attorney general, but the line was the same: to protect the scope by any means, and we will punish only those people who were engaged in the protection of public order and the protection of the constitutional order. And those who led to this, they are now all at the top. Not about any career. What are you talking about? We had 0 chances to stay alive. What a political career when you get killed tomorrow. Well, listen, this is ridiculous. This is the thesis that we came out for a political career, we went out to perish.
Serhiy Pashinsky. After Maidan, he became acting head of the presidential administration. Then, after the parliamentary elections, he became the head of the Defense and National Security Committee. Also, Pashinsky becomes the head of the supervisory board of Ukroboronprom. This association of enterprises is engaged in the sale of weapons. Very profitable position in the conditions of the war in the Donbass. In Tbilisi, our film crew managed to see and photograph documents confirming the words of Bersh, Caesar and Alexander. These are electronic tickets. Dates and names coincide.
The former president was Yanukovych. Am I wrong? So, on the 18th day, Mamuka told us that the former president reached agreements with the Europeans. He will go to some negotiations related to some kind of elections, and the meeting will stop. There will be no meeting. But we had to make sure that these protesters did not go. We should not have allowed the collapse of the meeting. We were told, let's go. Well, we went. Afterwards, we learned that this is the Hotel Ukraine. We went up to the 3rd floor. We went into the room and sat there. I met there with several people. They were Estonians, so they were jokingly called Kole 1, Kole 2. The head of Mamuk's group called us to the meeting, and someone thin, not very tall, like me, came with Saakashvili. He was an American. He was introduced to us like Brian. I grinned, why exactly Brian? Why not just another surname? I remembered the film of Sergeant Brian. They explained to us that he's a specialist in his business, a sniper. He was in hot spots in Afghanistan, in Iraq. They said that at this stage he helps us, that he's a cool guy. When the people came in, these were Christopher Bryan, Pashinsky, and other guys. They brought 2 black bags to our room, brought it, set them up. There were weapons in the bags. It were Dragunov sniper rifles. 2 of them are of Russian origin. One of the rifles was of foreign origin, with its own sight and with legs. Pashinsky returned to us and said quickly, "Follow me." He led us. We went after him in the conservatory. Then Parasyuk and probably 20 people came. And it was not necessary to speak. They left the conservatory. 20 people, they left the conservatory with their bags. Then someone came to us. These were Ukrainians. 2 people spoke in Ukrainian. One, the younger, was Parasyuk. And where will the program be?
They are making a film about Maidan.
Well, if they're making, so let them to make. This is Прямый, right? Because if you said that it is 112, so I would not come.
After his merits of the Maidan, Parasyuk became a people's deputy. Recently, he said that this is not high time to know the truth about the Maidan for the people of Ukraine.
Pashinsky already had a machine gun, and they began to distribute weapons. These are the ones that were next to us. He gave to the young. There is such semi-automatic rifle called Saiga. Yes, indeed. On the evening of the 18th day, when they beat us up here in Kiev, this time in the western Ukraine, the protesters seized several police departments where weapons were stored. This weapon fell into my hands. It's true. What did you want? Of course, there were tens of thousands of people on the Maidan, of course. I suppose that some of them... Well, when your family is killed, you have 2 lines of behavior. Hiding somewhere in the Minsk from the fear, or look into the eyes of his killer. We looked into the eyes. When the meeting was held, the snipers were to shoot at the protesters at Berkut. The meeting did not break up to create chaos and excitement. The meeting was to be preserved, not to disperse. The government had to be deposed. In the morning, probably closer to the 8th. I was on the 4th one. Looked out the window, and this time shooting from the conservatory started. Sharply Pashinsky command, stand all the positions. What? In general, that he gives order to shoot at the target. The goal is not important. There is the Berkut, and there are no difference between the protesters. How does the sniper work? Well, for example, if the window is open here, I cannot work from here, because it will betray myself. There is square, and it is impossible someone to see me. When you shoot, the weapon produces a strong sound. You are seen from here. When there are 2 people near the window, one opens the window, the other is located, and he must work from here. He shoots, the other closed. The bullet crashes, but there is no sound. The sound remains here, in place of the shot. Nothing is visible and everything is closed.
At this time, in the foyer of the Hotel Ukraine, an improvised hospital is organized. Gabo Homolets, a physician in the 5th generation and a doctor by vocation, is struggling to save the wounded. Shoots were made so professionally. That is, they shoot directly into the frontal lobes of the brain, fired directly into the heart, and shoot at the coronary arteries. We stood with intubation tubes already ready to intubate. Inserted on the stretcher in the doorway, drippers were put, but the gunshot wounds were so heavy that it was impossible to save life. The only participant of these events who denied us in an interview is the commandant of the Maidan, Andriy Parubiy. Andriy Parubiy, in fact, the second person in Ukraine after the president. At the beginning of his political career, he was one of the founders of the Social National Party of Ukraine. The party of Parubiy borrowed its symbolism from the SS division. Based on the materials of the investigation of the massacres on the Maidan, Parubiy stated in his testimony that there was a third force on the Maidan. That kind of force is that the Speaker of the Verkhovna Rada speaks about. And why does he refuse to answer this question? Well, you know, it sounds as if the current authorities are not interested in revealing the truth.
Well, I do not know the detailed motivation, but the fact that after 4 years of investigation, I can say that they are not interested in helping the investigation. But why? How can you build a version about this, including the one that was voiced by you?
After the murders on the Maidan, Bash and Alexander immediately left Ukraine. Since then they are on the run. Caesar didn't want to lose his money, but for this he was required to take part in provocation in Odessa, which led to the tragic events of May 2. This operation was commanded by Andriy Parubiy. See the full story in the extended version of our investigation.
I speak the way it was. Do you imagine? Imagine such a thing. Why should I say such things? Talk down on myself? What for? Am I an idiot, or I do not understand something? I do it to protect myself. And it turns out, those guys who were there and decided to tell, as well as these guys who decided to protect me, why did I tell you in the end? What would not have happened is the fault of Saakashvili and Mamulashvili, with those guys who decided to have the interview. Do you understand? Of course, I'm afraid for my life. You know, when you look into the eyes of death, that's one thing. But when someone can speak up to you from behind and shoot in the back, it's a completely different thing. It's better for me to shoot looking into my eyes than to creep from behind.
4 years later, the people of Ukraine do not know the truth. They just do not want to talk to them. And the free people of Ukraine, for some reason, do not require it.
I have already agreed with my Georgian colleagues. I will catch them, these Marans who taught there that they shot on my command. I do not exclude that I will dial you, my Jewish friends, here in Kiev. They say, Sergei Vladimirovich, they will be torn in Israel, like this. I say, damn, if I still ask them to be torn in Israel, then we will definitely quarrel for 10 years.
Those that came to power through the organization of the murder of their own people are now in high positions in the government. But the witnesses of this crime continue to perish.